welcome to another episode of Studio City Spotlight. And today, the spotlight is on filmmaker Rob Husted, the writer-director of a short called Lost Treasure of the Valley. And it's been winning all kinds of awards at many festivals all over the country. So let's first watch the trailer for the movie, and afterwards we'll talk to Rob and find out what makes him so incredibly fascinating.
There are these perfectly good things that have all this momentum in life and then somehow just stop moving forward, abandoned by the world.
Not abandoned, kid. Clearly left behind by higher intelligence. And if you could pinpoint them all, they could lead to the biggest treasure in history.
I'm not going on this crazy adventure with you, okay?
Look, kid, you got no place to call your own.
You have to give us something by tomorrow, or move out so we can get a real roommate.
You got no love life. So what do you say? Do you want to look for a job? You want to look for treasure?
Treasure.
Okay, now raise your hand if you want beet salad.
But speaking of offbeat stuff, so we did this movie that's so offbeat, man. It's just, it's so crazy.
Thank you.
And it's called, what's the actual title again?
So it's called Lost Treasure of the Valley.
The Lost Treasure
and
of
it's
the Valley.
it's basically a crazy love letter to the Wild West that is
Yeah.
the San Fernando Valley, from someone who did not grow up here, from someone who moved here, much like how Sergio Leone made Once Upon a Time in America, and you saw America through his eyes. I tried
Right.
to put the Valley through my movie eyes. And
We've also mixed in with a lot of like fantasy and
yes.
yeah.
There's a dragon. There's a dragon. There's
an
an adventure. There's treasure, and I mean, I have to thank you because you were really, I mean, one of the first, like the handful of festivals that actually said we like this, and we were just happy to be selected, and you were nice enough to give us award. Like seriously, the awards that we got, they are still the centerpiece of my humble bookshelf. So thank you again for that. That was. And it was still our favorite festival. Like we had the greatest time there. It was the best audience and the best crowd, the best ceremony. It was such a blast. So yeah, it was great.
Your movie fit right in with what we try to do at the festival, you know, and with the content of taking some, you know, just outrageous stuff and just really attempting to do something cutting edge while still telling a story.
Thank you.
But it was, I mean, well, first of all, you said you did not grow up in the Valley. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Connecticut. So if you've ever read, if anybody ever reads the comic Calvin and Hobbes, which is just, it's boy and his tiger just running around the woods. I did a lot of that, running around the woods. Very Stephen King town. So, a little creepy too. But it was basically the extreme suburbs. And the thing about Los Angeles that I just couldn't believe is that, the suburbs of LA, it's like a collision of the urban and the suburban and the Western. So it's much more cinematic than the East Coast suburbs. I mean, if you want cinematic on the East Coast, you really, you have to go to New York, you have to go to Philly. The suburbs are all just sort of very anonymous. But when I moved to the Valley, and my producer John also moved to the Valley, we were just struck by how, I mean, it's like you could just put sticks down or just have a handle or just now your phone, and it just already looks like you're in a movie. And I just thought we have to make a movie, not just film it in the Valley, but something that mythologizes it and pretends like there's even more to it than that. So it was it was like stepping into a dream coming out here, like other people wanted to move to Hollywood and we were like, no, the Valley is where it's at. This is nuts. This is a movie set, So
you have the perception of the Valley before you moved out here, like where there's anything in a movie or anything or a TV show that kind of gave you a glimpse of that.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, so on the East Coast, the only inkling that we had about the Valley was, Valley Girl, like the Nick Cage movie, or the Frank Zappa song, Valley Girl, where it's, or, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where it seemed like it was a little bit more colloquial in terms of how regional it is. Like it seemed like, there was a dialect that you would have to speak and stuff. And I think by the time we moved out here, it seems like so many transplants have come in and just kind of overrun it that it was,
Right.
it's kind of established a bit of a new identity. It's really cool because it feels like in a lot of ways the Ellis Island of Los Angeles. Like it feels like everybody just kind of jumps off the boat and comes here, and either they decide they love the valley and they stay in it, or they venture further out. But I mean, I haven't left yet. I mean, I did a brief tour in Hollywood and I just ran screaming back to the valley. I was like, I don't want to live in the middle of a death arena. I just I want to go back to the suburbs. And I still feel like in a lot of ways, it's still this undiscovered gem. Like it's just this magical place. So,
it's funny you said that. I was just thinking today, I was, I live in Hollywood and I'm Bronson Canyon area. And
oh, that's a pretty part of Hollywood. That's
I
really
like it where I am. It's great,
Yeah.
But I always feel more relaxed and more at home when I'm in the valley. So like today,
Totally.
I do, if my dentist, it's got to be in the valley. The dentist is in Toluca Lake, and this, I was just thinking today while I was there, I had to go to the dentist today, and I was thinking, yeah, it's just so nice. Pull up. There's no parking meters.
Right.
You just pull up and you're just easy. You get out and you're right there. And what part of the valley I love the most is like North Hollywood, Burbank, Glendale. And Pasadena. I love Pasadena.
Pasadena is amazing, but yeah, you're right. It's North Hollywood. I'm in North Hollywood right now, actually.
Yeah.
That's where and Hollywood, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of like the lore of Hollywood and all the punk stuff that happened in Hollywood, and just, all the really cinematic stuff that happened in Hollywood. Where I lived in Hollywood was so not the nicest part. Where you're currently living sounds beautiful. I did live in a part that was like, it was like an alleyway or something. It was like, the cheap veal cage of an apartment. So, Hollywood is awesome, but I love hanging out there, but there was just something that pulled me back. And I think it was the cheap rent, the space, but where I am right now is actually, I feel like, to your point, it's the most valley-like part. I'm right off of Lancashire on Hartsook, so it's not far from where the Studio City Festival was, up the street. And it's very suburban. It's very, very urban. If you have the Citizen app, you can see how urban it is. A lot of machetes and stuff. But I love it. I mean, and I love how close it is to Hollywood. Like it's this suburban safe place that's still somewhat dangerous. That's right near Hollywood. So everything that you're saying, +1.
I use my Humboldt Park or whatever, or anything. Yeah. It was funny when I was, in my 20s before I moved down here. The one show that would show the valley a lot, the only show I could think of that would show it constantly, was the Lockwood Files.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I was like, God, look, where's he driving around? I didn't know the area. I knew it wasn't Hollywood, but it was, it's the one area where you feel comfortable, where they're feel comfortable shooting all who's driving around. And if you look at those old Lockwood Files episodes, he's all driving around. It's all about,
It's
for the most part.
Yeah, no, it's that's a great example. And yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I regret that I wasn't, I obviously regret that I was born too late, but seeing movies that are set in the valley, movies like Fast Times, like I wish I could have seen the valley pre-Northridge earthquake, because I'll never get to see the original Sherman Oaks Galleria, like what that was. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of like, concert places that are gone and stuff like that. And now with like the ArcLight, closing, it's like, I feel like, I'm trying to enjoy as much of it as I can while stuff is starting to open back up again, because I know in another 5 years, it's going to be even different. So,
well, yeah. There was, but one thing is Hollywood's always been seedy, no matter what.
Which I like about it. I love the myth and the seedy myth. It's great.
I mean, but it is. It's change what it is. It's just different types of seediness.
Right.
I first came down here in the 70s, and back then when you would come down in the LA Basin in the 70s, all you saw was this giant, thick small. It was just, it was incredible how thick it was, and how dark it was. You know,
Wow,
it was unbelievable. You know,
so
and it was just stunning the first time you would see it. You know, and it's
that's
just how they-
amazing.
to clean it up so much.
Well-
That was before, you know, catalytic converters and all that stuff.
Well, so I was just watching The Nice Guys, so it really was like that, right? It was just like this.
Yeah.
this,
Oh,
this-
oh, yeah. It was unbelievable.
Wow, that's
It,
see,
it,
that-
it looked like a science fiction thing. It was, it's like, you know, Blade Runner or something, or you couldn't quite. I just remember the very first time I saw it, you know, thinking like, oh my God, this is awful. You know,
wow. So I wish I could have seen
so
that.
thick that I mean, you could just see it just walking around in front of you. It was that thick, you know. It was
So
bizarre.
I love watching movies that were set in LA in the 70s and 80s and the 60s because I love seeing like like watching like Terminator. It's like downtown must have been a freaking war zone back then. I mean, I imagine you probably could get a really nice loft and live pretty cheaply, but you probably took your life in your own hands, I'm assuming.
It was unbelievable. Well, another thing, like when I first moved down here, in the late '80s, I lived with a girlfriend in West LA, and
Oh wow.
back then, you know, after we broke up, you know, I was like, I asked some friends, I said, where do you actually move to? You know, do I want to stay in West LA? Nobody would move to Hollywood. Now, but I never met anybody that said, yeah, I moved to Hollywood. Was just like, and it was for cheap. Dirt cheap then, yeah, and it had a horrible reputation. Nobody wanted to you know, and because everything was, people want to live in West LA or Westwood or Santa Monica or the beach or whatever, you know, and then
Sure.
downtown, forget it. That wasn't even. I've never met anybody that lived downtown, and now it's like, you know, and now well, it's so funny. I have a friend of mine named Ray. Ray lives, grew up in South Central on 48th and 7th Avenue.
Wow. Interesting neighborhood. That must, and he grew up there. Wow.
He
Interesting.
grew up there, and
Yeah.
so and I, you know, the first time I was there was to see him, you know, was in the 80s with his family, and so at that time you would never see a white person in the neighborhood. I mean, ever, you know.
Sure.
I never saw one. I spent a lot of time down there. So now, you know, fast forward many years later, and it was so bad. I mean, it was always a nice neighborhood. You know, it's got palm trees everywhere, and everything.
Sure.
Everybody's got the yards in perfect shape and everything, and it's always been nice. And but it's you know, 100% black neighborhood. Now,
Sure.
the way things are going with, you know, white people are moving in that neighborhood, you know.
Well, they have
And
like
they
cyclovia
were, oh my
now.
God,
and stuff.
I thought white people walking their baby down the street. And it was so funny. So they had, years ago, there was one problem because there was right next door to where his parents lived, somebody saw he had a crack house.
Sure.
So, and it was, you know, it was a nightmare for the family and everybody to start breaking in to their place. So Ray's mom went in and said, screw it. She went over and made an offer on the house. Let me buy this house from you. And they sold
She
it.
bought the crack house. Oh my
Bought the
God.
house. And then
Wow.
he did it. So now that house, you know, many years later, they're getting ready to sell, right?
That's amazing.
So what was funny about though is so Ray listed it with this landlord lady, real estate lady, and you know, and so she wanted to dress it up, and you know, they put furniture in and stuff, and things in the walls, all this stuff, right? To show
Sure.
people. So and it was like, so he called me one night to ask me about this. He said you walked in there, and on the walls were pictures of you know, white surfers, and then other walls a picture of Elvis Presley. And this is still quite, you know, not a black neighborhood. You know, I never a lot of Latins have moved in there too, but still.
That's
But
so funny.
it's just like,
That's so it's like they've gentrified the house.
They go-
like with like
even beyond gentrification, they're almost like saying, look, this is for white people right here. So I told him, man, go back and tell him right now I'm moving that. Yeah,
Well,
but-
it's so funny.
And he did, and she did, but she didn't understand why he was upset. But
Well,
no, but
it's
just want
funny.
to know how LA has changing, and the dynamic of is changed dramatically, man. And what were
It's-
what's considered really bad neighborhoods, I mean, they're just people just going in and take them over, and it
Yeah.
doesn't always try to be a good thing.
I know, because I mean it's funny because there's definitely something analogous, happening in New York. I have a lot of friends that they grew up in this part of town called Washington Heights, which was, again, I mean, not a single white person. It was predominantly Latin, but I mean, beautiful neighborhood. I mean, I visited my friends there. Gorgeous. All the buildings are pre-war. It's a really beautiful neighborhood, but it's it's almost like universities now. There's a really big school. It's like, I think it's like the yeshiva school is like just, buying up blocks of property. And, NYU did the same thing in the Lower East Side back in the day. They just kept buying up stuff. And, it's almost like, is it a good thing? I mean, it's almost like, it's like if there's a way to just maintain the cultural integrity of an area, that's great. But, but I know, but it's almost like you don't want it to lose its identity. I mean, it's great that, I mean, what I'm thinking about is like, it's great that people can buy houses, back in the day and sell them for a decent amount of money now. But it's just, it's always a bummer to see if it's like really changing, that much, because you don't want it to disappear. It's like, you don't want every block to have a freaking Starbucks and, an expensive high-rise apartment. It's not.
You look at like at the Brahma's Chinese Theater. Well, it's not called Grams anymore, but the Chinese theater.
Yeah, we played there. Yeah, the TLC. Yeah, exactly, right there. Yeah, yeah.
And right next door now you got a Marshalls and a Target, and it's like, come on, man.
I've heard so many stories about how many cool old school apartment buildings used. I mean, in Hollywood, just like how they're disappearing really fast. But
up is really luxury places.
Yeah, I mean, even the block
people that are affording all these places, that's what kills me.
I was living on Ivar Avenue in Yucca, and this was only 3-4 years ago, and it wasn't that bad of a neighborhood, but it didn't have any high rises, and now there's like crazy expensive, and I'm like, who exactly? What is the demographic that is like moving in? Who can afford this shit?
I really don't know. I mean, and where they come from, and where they get all this money.
I don't know how they're getting $3,000 for rent for like a tiny 1-bedroom, but your guess is as good as mine for sure.
You go to film school back east?
Yeah, I went to NYU, which was super. I mean, I met a lot of the same people that like I'm working with now on creative stuff, and I had a blast. The last dorm that I live in was right across from Washington Square Park, so it was right in the middle of everything. I saw so many good bands. Who did I see? I got to see the New York Dolls. I got to see Bad Brains, this amazing like all African American punk band from DC. I got to see the Weirdos. Weirdos are a great LA punk band. The only problem with NYU is I had a lot of friends who, went to UCLA or USC out here, or even like, some of the Emerson extensions. And like, in LA, it's almost like there's a much better handoff to the industry. So it's almost like, I think at like UCLA, they have like, speed dating with agents when you graduate. So NYU was like, I did an internship at Troma, and Troma's awesome. Troma did the Toxic Avenger, and they're great. Lloyd Kaufman is hilarious. Literally nothing that we left NYU with prepared us for any kind of like job in the industry. So it was a really fun experience, but it was almost like afterwards. And this was right before YouTube was really a big thing, and Netflix was still sending discs out and stuff. So this was like 2004. So we should have gone to school either 4 years earlier, 4 years later. We were just like this weird phantom class that like, we still shot on film and cut on film, but we were doing digital, but it was still pretty nascent. So we weren't doing a lot of stuff.
Early digital was crappy.
It was crap, but I did feel,
The mini stuff was like it.
Oh, the mini DVC. That's the thing. All the stuff that I had
it was good, but it's much better than VHS or whatever.
Yes, it was better than VHS, but I mean, they're all. I mean, literally, it's like you would film it on digital, and then you would export it from the Avid onto like. it would be like a third generation dupe of a
Yeah.
VHS. Meanwhile, the 16 that I shot and cut on a flatbed, that still looks okay. Like, you know, so go figure, you know.
Yeah. You said you talking about trauma because with a Toxic Avenger, I mean, that you make kind of like your shorts like a trauma type of
It's
thing.
very B movie. No, it's very like completely. And it's funny because like, you know, I was only there for a couple of weeks interning at Trauma, but you know, I'm a big fan of their stuff. And it's almost like the guys that run that studio, like Lloyd Kaufman, and so like a lot of cool people came out of that. Like James Gunn came out of, you know, Trauma. And I think Matt Parker and Trey Stone, or Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who did South Park, they had a movie distributed by them. And like that company, like they're very cinema literate, like they're, you know, they're very into like old silent films and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of what we were trying to do with ours, is like, you know, it's you know, it's a goofy B movie, but it's got, you know, a lot of nods to, you know, actual classic cinema in there too. It's like we were trying to do Sergio Leone on a budget. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, you got the and then the CGI. Who did the CGI stuff in there?
It was two guys. So we actually had, I had a friend of mine who worked there's a show called Robot Chicken, which is like a claymation type thing. He was a big VFX lead for them. So he did the sort of, you know, all the modeling and stuff. So he sort of like, he created a dragon for us. He created like a hidden temple with a shopping cart on top of it, because there's this hidden temple that exists in Sepulveda Boulevard with a treasure inside. And then I had another really good friend of mine who I'm still working with now, who is a really good commercial VFX artist. And he actually did sort of all the finishing. So, you know, we have some like laser effects and light effects, and he sort of took all the modeling and stuff and really kind of did all the finishing. So, you know, all the really important stuff of, you know, building the temple is like, that's a lot of fun. But once you build it, if there's any camera movement, if it's not tracked properly, you're screwed. So, I mean, he pretty much did all that stuff. I mean, he went in and made sure that all of the stuff that wasn't real seemed real, because he made sure that it sat really well in the scene. So, yeah, I mean, it really, you know, it took a village and everybody was really committed. So,
And then who made the shopping cart costume?
That is a really good friend of mine. So we were really lucky because we had two really great, one person who was our production designer and wardrobe person, who her name is Pinch. She's really awesome. She's actually the wife of one of our actors, Greg Lee. They both worked on the show Carmen Sandiego back in the day. If you ever saw the game show, he was the host of it, and she did everything on the show. I think she did props and wardrobe. So she did all of our costumes, all of our production design. The only costume she didn't do was our shopping cart armor, which a buddy of mine named Nathaniel did. He works for a company called Riot Games, and he goes to Burning Man, Wasteland. So he's one of those nuts that actually has like a metal saw. And so in the movie, there's like, literally, it's like a knight's costume that's made out of shopping carts. And he basically was just like, look, if you get me a shopping cart, I will, you know, so I procured a shopping cart. I'm not saying how I got it or where, but it might've been at 3 a.m. And it was funny because when I grabbed the shopping cart, I felt so bad because there was an orange cowboy hat in the shopping cart. And I thought, I wish,
guy, no?
Yeah, well, I felt bad because I thought, I wish we could somehow put this in the movie as a nod to this guy, and there was no other stuff in it, so I didn't take it from anybody's camp or anything. But I just thought, I wish I could have found a place for this. But so he did that, and you know, Pinch did all of our other costumes. She did an amazing job in all the production design, and my buddy Glenn was the one that finished all the VFX. So
okay, but let me ask you this though. So you got all this crazy stuff in there, you know. I mean, so did you write, or at least part of the script that you wrote, was some of it because you got the ideas of incorporating some of the stuff from some of the guys that you knew, like you know a guy who does CGI, so I'm gonna put in a dragon. I know a guy who's got a metal saw. I'm gonna build a shopping cart armor. You know what I mean?
That's an awesome question.
That completely.
That's an awesome question. No, so this was just a dream script. This was just so I started writing this when I first moved to LA. I was crashing with friends. One of them was actually John, our producer. I crashed with him and his wife, and I had no idea how I was going to make it. I literally had no idea. And I was sort of dual pathing and working on, like, I was trying to break in as like a featured screenwriter. Of course, nothing, I broke in with nothing. And I kept writing stuff that was makeable and some stuff that wasn't makeable. But this one thing, I just, for some reason, because I don't know, maybe because I just didn't think about the practicalities of it, from the get-go, I had the dragon in there and I had the shopping cart armor in there. I didn't even, when I started writing it, I didn't even know any of the people that were going to make all that stuff. I had no idea.
So the original script had all that, had the direction.
All of it. It was all in there. All that stuff was in there. And yeah.
When you first wrote it, were you thinking about shooting it yourself?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to make it. I was just very optimistic. I just thought there's got to be a way to film it somehow. Yeah, I really had no idea how we were going to do the draft. I thought.
Okay, I have one question though. So because at the end, well, what's the lead actor's name?
Oh, Everardo. He's wonderful. Yeah, Everardo Barriga.
And so he's saying, so they get to the treasure, and the treasure's not worth anything. It's just refuse.
It's just empty bottles. Yeah, that's all it is.
What the deal was, I'll give you the treasure, but somebody has to sit here and guard the rest of the new treasure.
Yes.
But there is no real treasure. So
but the treasure,
I don't know. So what's this guy guarding? I mean, I never
but the real treasure is finding the treasure in yourself. It's
I got that part.
he realizes that he is one of these weird, because it's almost like he's been photographing shopping carts this entire time, and he finally realized that he is one of these weird, cool things. He's not something that he wants to photograph. And maybe the next person that finds the treasure, maybe they realize something else. That idea came about, to be perfectly honest, because out of all the things that are fantastical in the movie, I couldn't think of a fun way to make because I just thought, the only way to make this end and have it be kind of funny is the Monty Python ending, like the Holy Grail ending, where it's like, it ends with the police shutting them down. Like it ends with the cops shutting them down. Because I thought, if we just give you a treasure, there were early drafts where it was a crazy, awesome gold coin treasure. But I thought, but that doesn't feel like, it feels like, what's it? Okay, so we'll animate the coins or something. But I just thought it'd be funnier if, and more Valley-like.
Right.
He just finds junk. But it is glowing. I will say this: it does glow when it opens. So they are glowing bottles.
Yeah. Well, I guess that was a nod to a couple movies, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
One of them, right? And
yeah, kind of a Repo Man nod a little bit, like the glowing trunk.
That was it.
A little bit, for sure. Yeah, but I will say that the ending has been. And I love this about the movie. It's been the most polarizing part of the movie, because we've been in screenings where people are just like, what the fuck? And then we've been in screenings where people laugh. So I love it. I love that it runs the spectrum, because it's like, we get enough laughs for the rest of it that if people are just like, what? Like, I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
It's meant to be.
and as long as they talk about
it. That's the thing. It's like, it's all about making a dialogue. So yeah.
And the other thing I would like back to, because a lot of little things I always notice about movies too. So, the titles and the ending credits. I mean, the graphics are really cool.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to make. That was our very first VFX guy. This guy named Jack. He we always had this idea that we should just do something with the photo, like nobody really, you didn't get to see his photo book about shopping carts. So if you single frame through it, there's writing about the shopping carts. Like, we treated it like a real book. So
it's like, I just stop if I can see that.
Yeah, it's like a Sir Walter Raleigh hunting for shopping carts diary almost. So.
No, it's awesome, man. So that was, so you pulled this off. You did a great job. So what? So what's next, man?
Prison. No, I'm just kidding. It's a white collar minimum prison.
When you get out of me.
Well, you know what? We've been so lucky. We've had, your festival was like, amazing, one of our best experiences. But it turned out to be that we had such a lucky festival run. We're actually still going because. Nice. It's almost like, the pandemic was such an awful thing, but one of the weird side effects of it was that a lot of the festivals that were happening either live or just, virtual. No matter what, some of them have postponed. Some of them went all virtual last year and now they're doing in person. So we're still going in festivals. To date, we've won 58 awards, and it's still, 58. We played in Moscow.
Wow.
In a theater. We played in a theater.
Wow.
And the best part is they transliterated our English subtitles. Oh, I wish oh God, this was at the height of the pandemic and they were like, we're Russian, we're doing it. No, but they did it. They were just like, we played the UK, we played Japan. I mean, we're still playing. So, that's been really great. Just before we talked, I actually just talked with the composer who did the really great score for it. This guy, Steve.
Well, that's another thing we did mention. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, he just did such a fantastic job. I wasn't really sure what to do. A lot of filmmakers get to this point where it's like, okay, so this turned out pretty good. Like, what am I gonna do next? I've been writing a couple features, and there was an indie producer that I met who really liked the movie, who was interested in some features. But before I even do that, like while those are still, kind of in process, I'm going to make a couple more shorts, but actually they're way shorter. So this was a very long short. It's a 26-minute.
Yeah.
It demands a lot of attention.
About 20 minutes or so, right? 20 minutes.
It's a commitment. You might have to shift in your seat a few times. So I've been just kind of getting two more short that are very short. They're like 8 minutes long, but they're just as crazy as Lost Treasure. One of them is a VFX extravaganza, just like Lost Treasure. The other one's just crazy comedy. The guy who, and I think the second one is going to be kind of a Lost Treasure reunion. It's going to have like our shopping cart hunter guys in it. So yeah, like a lot of people during the pandemic, I've just been planning. Oh, excuse me.
Well, did you edit it?
No, so there was one primary editor, and then I sort of took over maybe like the last third of the but he did 90% of the creative editing. I just kind of jumped in for, being sort of a first-time filmmaker. I was sort of doing what a lot of them do, noting him to death and giving him. And of course, he's a really good editor. He's very in demand. So there was a bit of a handoff towards the end. So I would say I probably did like maybe the last 20% of it, just the fine tuning and, moving stuff around. So,
have you thought about, I'm sure you thought about this. I mean, is it, because if you can do a long short, which is, whatever it was, 22, 23 minutes, whatever. It's not a giant leap to be doing, 80, 90-minute feature.
I agree. No, I agree. And I think I'm in this place of, I was able to save up enough cash that I could do another short or two without having to crowdfund, which is like such a blessing. It's like, I will be dipping into my funds and I'm excited for that. It's not quite enough to make a feature, but I do want to make if somebody offered me a feature, I would make it in a second. I think at this point, right now I'm working on a couple that hopefully somebody else could pay for, because they're a little bit more, I would say one of them is like on the scale of Lost Treasure, but it's actually like 90 minutes. So it would require some cash. And I've written another one that's a little bit lower budget. So it's almost like I've been trying to do what I know, like you and literally everybody in this town does, which is, okay, I made something cool. Now I have to multitask and work on 8 different things, hoping that somebody likes 2 of them, and putting just as much attention into all 8 of them. And it's like, it's a little exhausting, but it's also exhilarating. But thank you for that vote of confidence. Yeah. I mean, seeing it at your festival, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ready, but like, I'm so pumped. Like, I feel like I would love to do something that's just, 3 times as much work as this, so it's 90 minutes instead of 26 or whatever. So, but thank you. I mean, seriously, like your fest really emboldened me to keep making more stuff. And it felt so great seeing it with your audience. And also we played with so many awesome films at that fest. I mean, it's, some festivals, like I'm not going to, name, but it's almost like, sometimes you go and, there's a couple cool films if you're lucky, maybe there's one good feature, but like everything that you programmed was just, awesome and it was a blast. And the filmmakers, I think, felt a really great sense of community. So it was a lot of fun.
Thank you for saying that, because we do really try hard to make it a really to have as much quality stuff out there as possible. And you can't always bat 1,000, and there's there's been a few times where we've had, you know, a little selection remorse, you know.
Oh, a selection, and then sometimes you play something awesome and the crowd doesn't respond. Like sometimes that happens too. So yeah.
But for the most part, you know, and I think I just know that years ago I had submitted a short in the it was the LA Shorts Fest, right? So,
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so it's going to screen opening night at 8 o'clock. I said, oh, geez.
Sounds awesome. Yeah.
This is amazing, you know. And what was great about it was the first film festival I had entered into for this thing, you know.
Oh, that's great.
So I get that, but I'll tell you, it has just mixed feelings about it because that night it was great. You know, it was at what was the ArcLight, I guess it was.
Oh my gosh, that's huge.
I forget. Is either ArcLight or the Sunset Limley.
Oh, I mean that's amazing.
Anyway,
that's a great theater. Yeah, it's great.
So, but anyway, so it's back. This is great. So, in the block of films that we were in, I thought they were all just horrible. so that just took a lot of the luster off of me. It's like, wait, how this goddamn. So when I wound up doing this festival, you know, we started like 2012. I started with like 3 or 4 of the people at the time, and I never wanted to do it. I mean, I just got hijacked into doing it. You know,
well, it's tough to put a festival on. My hat's off to you.
I'll do it with you guys for 1 year, and then I'm stepping away. You know?
Sure.
But the rest of it's a long story. But it's dissolving most of that partnership. But but no, it was not something I wanted to do. But I agreed, and these other guys I was with on this too agreed that we weren't going to just put anything up there. We wanted it to be, you know, have a lot of thought and a lot of judges look at the stuff and make sure that it really belongs there. You know, and because. You know, I mean, otherwise, why do it?
Well, you know, and sometimes we have played in some where it almost feels like there's and this is, you know, this happens at every fest. It's like, you know, like if somebody's, you know, friends of the festival enter films and stuff. We've been at some though where it's like, wow, the festival organizers really weren't good to their friends by letting their friends' movie into this festival because we're sitting in the audience and people are unironically laughing at their film. And it's almost like you should have just given them advice to submit something else next year or something like, but that was what's so great about yours. Like we didn't get that sense. I mean, at all. I mean, everything was so cool. And usually, you know, it's usually, you know, it's very collegiate and you meet all these other filmmakers and stuff, but a lot of times it's like, you know, you don't always talk to them afterwards and tell them how much you like their film. And I feel like we did that at yours more than like other festivals, like, cause we really just liked all the movies. I mean, they were great. And the party was awesome. Like it was a blast. It feels like it was forever ago, but it was such a blast. It was really, you know.
Well, I trying to throw a nice big party. I was really disappointed this last year when we couldn't do it, you know. The virtual festival was just not. It's not the most fun thing to do.
Well, the problem with it's almost like the thing with the virtual. I mean, it's like, I mean, you know, hats off to you for doing it because it's not, from a technical standpoint, it's not easy. I mean, there's a million things that can go wrong, but also, you know, the component that is so important to so many festivals is it's like that gathering before all the movies because it's like, and yours was set up so great. It's like networking. It's like you get to go and become friends with people and it's fun. It's like this like thrill of the chase thing of like getting people to come to your movie and then finding other people that are playing in the same block as you and stuff. Like it's, you know, it's something that this whole pandemic thing. I mean, it's just, I'm so glad that like things are starting to open up again because it's tough to replicate, but I think it's a great thing because it means that festivals are going to be around for a while.
Yeah. And in fact, I have to find out what I haven't talked to the Limleys lately, so I have to find out if there's still in business. I hear they are, so
that's good. Thank goodness.
And then hopefully by November, that you know
I hope so too. I want to go back. I can't want to go back so bad.
People get, I think most people will get the vaccines. Don't you
I
think?
mean, it seems like it's tracking for stuff to be back on track by the fall. That's what I feel like. I feel like we'll be back in movie theaters. I mean,
By July, everybody should have to
Yeah.
get a vaccine, I would think.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I missed that last part.
No, I said no,
Yeah.
no, I didn't say anything. I just said,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so too. I'm pretty optimistic, and I think like, stuff like the ArcLight closing is really sad to see, but I feel like, people are always going to have this primal need to sit in the dark and watch stories. And I think what's so great about the festival experience is just, it's how democratic the process is. I mean, it really is just the best place to see the most diverse, interesting, over the map content. So
and every filmmaker, I mean, wants to see their film on a big screen, and
yeah,
well, that was the problem with doing it virtually, is that and one thing I didn't think of beforehand was that once you do it online, you're going up against every single festival that's been online. So in other words, if a filmmaker, if they'd had a film somewhere else, let's say it played in Florida or something.
Oh, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
if they played in Florida in a virtual festival,
Right.
well, then they've already told their friends about watching it, so they've already seen it. And that's what happened to, and then we kept the prices a little low for the virtual festival, but it was just amazing because I would look at some of the films, and some of these films had already played, because we don't go until November. So a lot of films had already played at least one of the festivals during the year. And
Yeah.
But as soon as they get into at least one festival, they're broadcasting it to all their friends and family and say, "Oh, I'm in this festival. Come," so they can watch it online.
Sure.
I'm not gonna watch it online again when they're somewhere else.
Well, can I just say that was one of the great things about how great you were to us, because I remember we had the very first festival that we played at was the Valley Film Festival, and you actually said, "You guys have already played." It was like, "But you're like, I really like your movie." Like, you were so nice to us. You were just like, "But I'll put you on anyway," and it was so great. And
I forgot about that. I remember that now.
Yeah, it was so nice. It was like, "Oh, cool, thank you." But speaking about the virtual thing, yes, we ran into some interesting stuff where this was really funny. We played virtually, and they were both supposed to be in person, but then they had to cancel. It was like the New Jersey Film Fest and the Queens Film Fest, Saturday and a Sunday, and it was so crazy that it worked out that we were on different days. But it was also like, from a filmmaking perspective, it's like a promotional nightmare. It's like, what do you push? Like, what if they'd been on the same day? Like, what do you do? And but I think in some ways it at least for the virtual thing, it gave people an opportunity to see the content, and also maybe people that wouldn't have come out necessarily got to see it. So that's good.
Yeah, because when I was looking at, I was shopping for different companies who do that kind of thing, who do the virtual festival.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me quite a while to figure out who I
wanted. There's a lot of options. Yeah.
So, but this one I wound up using, I mean, I went to, I wanted to try out, see how it works. So, I paid to go to some blocks on there, and I enjoyed it, And if you're watching something crappy, you can fast forward to the next one. You don't have to watch it live.
Oh, great! Oh my God, it's
right.
That. Yes,
I thought that was going to be like a selling point, but it didn't.
But you know what? I think like we're both in the same boat. Like our favorite is the in-person experience, and I really think the way that everything is tracking that it will be. So it sounds like if that's the case, we're going to have the in-person Studio City Festival this year. It sounds like it's happening, possibly.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm going to try to do. Cool. I'm definitely doing that. Yeah, but it's so funny when you said that about you at the Valley Film Festival. I'd forgotten about that. I think I asked you. I said, hey, can you bring anybody if you just Because sometimes if I'm on the fence about something, or I think I want to take something.
Oh yeah.
I try to research. Have somebody else help me research. Where's it played? If it's already played somewhere, because no one's going to tell you.
Oh right, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was smart that you asked that. But
I think you said, oh, no, I'll get people out. I think.
yeah, we did bring people. Yeah, we did. We did.
I saw
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so great. It was so great because that was my best friend got to see it on the big screen. I think he'd not that long ago come back from he was serving. He was over in Afghanistan, so he got to come over. And so thank you for giving him a venue for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. That's some small way of saying thanks, you know.
Yeah, no, thank you for your service. Yeah.
I tell you what was bad. It was when I had with features. I always will call anybody I think was a feature. I always call them and say, you know, look, you know, where's it played, and are you bringing anybody? Because not that you have to, you already selected, but
Sure.
tell me, because
Sure.
if you expect anybody, if you expecting somebody, let me know. I'll give you a prime evening spot. You know.
Oh, that's cool.
But if you don't think so, you know, just please let me know. You know, because we're just, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, yeah.
There's been times where at least a few times where a guy will say, "Yeah, sure, I'll pack the place," and him not even show up. That's happened to me at least 3 or 4 times. But Fillmmaker doesn't even show up, and it's empty theater.
I never, and I totally know where you're coming from, because with the blocks, it's much easier to sort of, you know, like, I think it seems like you'll usually get more of a crowd because it's like, you know, 7 or 8 films. So it's like everybody wants to come out to support those 7 or 8 films. For a feature.
Right.
It's funny because when we played the Valley Film Fest, it was our first, we opened for a feature, and Tracy, who runs it, she was super nice, but she was just like, could you guys, she was like, could you guys stay for the feature that you're opening for? Because he was the nicest kid. He was this guy from Germany, and it was literally just him and his actress that had come over with the feature. So like, had we left, and I mean, there was an audience that came aside from us, but like we brought some people. So, so I see both sides of the fence, and yeah, I think that's smart to sort of screen your calls as far as the features go, because yeah, if you give them a prime slot and they can't bring anybody, then it's almost like, what's the point? You know, it's like,